what was super important to me, Graham, was when we started this thing, I never wanted anybody to ever wonder, do you think they sponsor the child? Because that turns into really gross marketing. So how we remove that is whenever we make a placement, we get paid. If it's local, we'll be in person. If it's not local, we're on a video screen. And literally the hiring leader and the person we place together will choose the child from the website. And then we execute, as a company, we execute the sponsorship. We actually end up working with an artist. And so we have kind of this custom 11 by 14 print that we actually give to the client with a picture of the child and the child's name. That basically tells them doing business with us is just different. So we want them to know, like, yeah, hopefully we placed a really good person for you, but it's kind of the trifecta. So now we get a sponsor, we're sponsoring this child.
So today on the Intentional Leadership Podcast, we have Mike Rice, the co-founder and managing partner of the Mamba Group, an IT and engineering staffing firm. But bigger than that, they have a mission and a purpose that is really just all the way through the theme of the Mamba Group. And we're going to talk about that, not necessarily just the business and how to grow that and make it successful. Mike brings 3 decades of IT experience, staffing, and he's thrived in leadership and sales. Mamba Group has a unique perspective, though. It's not about just connecting great people to a great business, but they have a one-to-one that we're going to talk about here in a little bit about how they're changing the world in a specific area in Africa. So we're talking about Kenya, actually. Mike, welcome to the show.
And thanks, Graham. Appreciate you having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah. So it's a pretty exciting story you have. You give us a little bit of background on, how you got started just in the IT world and where it's led you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as many, I think, in the recruiting and staffing space, I kind of fell into it. As you mentioned, nearly 3 decades ago, I think maybe I'm on year 27 or 28. So I've been in it a long time. And, I've had the opportunity to work with a few larger organizations, some smaller. Actually was a partner in a firm for a bit. And then kind of more recently in the story, I had got recruited by another staffing firm outside of Iowa. So I'm in the Des Moines, Iowa area to lead a company out of Ohio. And I had thought, God was directing me there, and not that he wasn't, but I thought that maybe where I might end my career. And the short version of that is that didn't work out as either side had hoped. And so I found myself really for the first time, it would have been December or November of 2023. I didn't have a job. So at that point I was 51. And again, in the space that I've played for so many years, we work with candidates quite often that are in between gigs or got downsized, et cetera. So, and not that I didn't have empathy there, but I never felt that, right? And now I felt it. Now I felt that.
Right.
And yeah, so that was, a little over 2 years ago. And so 2 months after that, that leads us to the current story. So 2 months after that would have been January of 2024. I was on a missions trip to Africa, to Kenya. There was a team of 15 of us from my church. Certainly that was already on the books and planned. And, at the time it was planned, I was working. At the time I was there, I was not. And so the cool part, Graham, was, so I could be there where my feet were, right? I didn't have the stress of running a company, maybe a little bit of stress on what am I doing next? But so at that point, my wife and I had sponsored 4 kids through an organization called the Hope Foundation of Kenya. And I would tell you, for probably up until there, probably 4 or 5 years before that, I just had a bit of a heart tug for Kenya. And I didn't know why. No clue. Never been there. I never felt like I was being called to be a missionary. It was never that. It was just, there was just a little tug on my heart for Kenya. And we just simply sponsored a few kids, right?
And Kenya, Africa is a large continent. And how Kenya, there's just really no other thing than just God was kind of just tapping you on the shoulder.
Yeah, just, pressing on my heart. And so I'm there. And so I meet our 4 kids. on that trip. And that for me, like it just moved it from this monthly transactional thing that I knew was a good thing to, wow, this really matters. These are real people that are in need, right? And so it was really a game changer for me. And so the really kind of cool God story on this trip was there was we were there maybe 11 or 12 days. And in the middle of that trip, there was a scheduled 2-day safari. And so it was January, which is in Africa, it's the middle of their summer. So incredibly hot, incredibly humid. And so I have asthma. I almost died from an asthma attack as a senior in high school. So I was, a pretty serious deal, and I still am on meds today, but very well maintained. Well, I found out the day before we left for this safari, it was a 2-hour van ride that was non-air conditioned, and we're staying in tents. So I'm like, wow, like that's probably not a good spot for Mike. So anyway, so I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go. And so what I felt like, for me, I felt like God orchestrated. I had 2 days by myself in Africa with the entire missions team gone. So it was really over that couple of day period. I'm just, again, so I'm there, I don't have a job. And so I'm asking God, I'm like, what do you want me to be doing? So I was praying, I was in the Word and just trying to understand, what's next. And it was really on that trip during those 2 days that He planted it in me. He wanted me to start a company. And He planted the why around it, which we'll talk about in a bit. And again, so I'm 51. I'm like, starting a company, I know what that is. Like that's not really what I had in mind at that stage of my career, right? And so, so my reality was, is I get back from Kenya, and when you get back on the American soil, then you get back to reality. So my reality was, I don't have a job, and from a faith standpoint, I was kind of angry at God. I was like, I really spent 25 years growing my career to start over? About that. I was fearful. This was uncomfortable. And, so what I did was I got a website, I got an LLC put together, but I really didn't know if I was going to do it. Again, it was really fear, to be honest, and just, being uncomfortable. And so kind of that journey for the next 6 weeks, what I consider it not running from the call, I was simply trying to find something more comfortable than that. So I didn't need to be the CEO of a company, but could I play a leadership role in an existing company to help them grow? So that's what I was looking for. I'm a networker, so I was having a bunch of conversations, and there's a couple of opportunities that seemed pretty interesting that might have some legs. And of course, as God does, He closes those doors. So those were not my doors. So what really solidified, Graham, the call from me was 6 weeks into that, my pastor comes up to me one morning before church, and he was on that mission trip with me. And he just said, hey, your name got brought up to be considered to be on the board of the Hope Foundation of Kenya, that nonprofit organization that we do our work with. And I'm like, oh, okay. And again, I'll remind you, I had this little heart tug for Kenya. God's kind of tapped me to maybe do something here. And of course, my pastor would have had no idea of that. And I will also say I had even, the thought had even entered my mind about serving on their board, but it was more when I retired. Like that's what my thought was. Hey, maybe one day when I retire, I love what they're doing. I love the work. Maybe one day when I'm retired,
One day when, I love that.
Well, so now it gets brought to me now, and my wife is like, wow, I would love to do that with you. She's a former school teacher, so she would bring an entirely different lens than I would bring. And so the couple that runs that organization, they actually live in central Iowa. So they used to be missionaries on the field in Kenya. And maybe 10 or so years ago, one of their kids had a pretty major medical issue that brought them back to the States. So now they run it from Iowa, if you will, and have an African team down there. So we met them for dinner a couple of Friday nights later, and got to know kind of more about their vision, their mission, and got to know my wife, Beth, and I better, and really what happened. And again, they would have had no idea God was tapping me for this. No clue.
Mhm.
We didn't bring that up. I didn't bring that up.
How did you like just say, hey, I want to meet with you? I mean, was there some introduction from the pastor? Is that how you got there?
Well, so we knew them. Bobby,
okay.
the husband, was on the trip I was on.
Got it.
And so we, in with us sponsoring some kids, we knew them, but just not well.
Got it.
So that's kind of how that happened. And so we met, had a great conversation, and I woke up on Saturday morning and my fear was just gone.
Mm.
It just got lifted. And for me, from a faith standpoint, what I felt like God gave me was this clear view lens in the rear view mirror of everything he had just orchestrated for me to go do this.
All right.
And so I had mentioned I was angry. Well, that weekend, what clarity he gave to me, and it wasn't audible, but it was crystal clear. He was like, Mike, I've given you 25 years of experience for you to go do this. Do you trust me?
Mm.
So that was really the starting point of, okay, I'm in. Now I've got the peace. The way I've kind of been taught, and the way I learned from a faith standpoint, if I don't have peace, it's probably not from God. And so I finally got to that peace point, and of course I may have gotten that fear removed, but my wife did not. She was not. I would say she was on board, but there's still a lot of fear in that of like, man, if you go start a company, guess what? I'm not quite sure when I might bring home a paycheck, right? That's what that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, so that's kind of how this whole thing, got started. So we were in Mombasa, Kenya. So Mamba, the Mamba group, Mamba is short for Mombasa.
Okay.
So that's where that name was born. A lot of people think it might be Kobe Bryant.
Right. That's the first thing I think of is like, oh, the snake and Kobe, right. And yeah.
Which is great. I mean, it wasn't, but it certainly gives a little more brand recognition because of that, right? I mean,
Right.
Most people know Kobe and the Mamba mentality, all those things. So, so that's really how I got started. And the coolest thing is, in the only reason why we started it is really the why behind it.
Mm.
In our world, in the IT staffing space, this might be an exaggeration, but there's a gazillion competitors. There's a lot of people that do what we do, and it's super hard to differentiate, right? It just is. And as a couple of, and I've got a business partner out of Chicagoland area. We worked together at a couple of different stints. Another faith guy, and so he's we partnered in doing this. But for me, without our why, and our why is simply this: with every placement we make, we sponsor a child to that same organization, the Hope Foundation of Kenya. And so that's really what gets us out of bed. It's the only reason we started the company. And honestly, I wouldn't have the energy to go stand up this company to just stand up a company. I just wouldn't. Mm-hmm. So, but because the purpose we have is beyond us, it's bigger than us. That's what gets us out of bed every morning, because it's not about us, right? We get to go, my partner and I, Keith, have 60 years of experience together combined in this space. And now you combine that with a really, really cool purpose-driven mission. Now we've got something really cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot there, what you just shared. I mean, the first thing I think of is, so you've never been an entrepreneur in your whole career. You hit midlife and you're like, I don't have a job. What's next?
Yeah.
Now what? Right. I mean, so I mean, and then so you mentioned the fear. Talk about a trigger of that's the wrong word, but just a kind of a slap in the face or whatever. It's scary. Wife's a school teacher, so it's not like she was entrepreneurial per se. So you saw how others did it, and what was there a leadership lesson or something that you had seen from others that you said, well, on the IT side, I want to do this differently? Is it, how could you, besides the why behind it, was there some other leadership skills that you had learned along the way so that when you started your own company after 25 years that you could say, I want to do it differently than do it this way?
Yeah, I mean, there's, as I've had, a handful of stops in my career, it's just always opportunities to learn, right? You
Mhm.
grow, you get better, you see, how things are done, and it's always people. It's always, leading people well. Early in my career, I would have called myself a manager, not a
Mm.
leader. Um, and a lot of it has to do with, me turning my focus on others and not myself. Um, the one thing, that uh, I learned probably a decade ago, in the way I describe it is turning my focus to significance instead of success. So kind of how I define that is success is about me, significance is about other people. And so when I make significance my priority, the success just follows, but it doesn't go the other way around, right? If I'm focused on success, you're probably never landing on significance. Um, so yeah, just lots of lessons learned over the years, and I've been asked a handful of times, man, do you wish you would have started it sooner? And the answer is no. I'm just a different person. I would not have it. I wouldn't have been ready to start this company with its mission if it happened 5 or 10 years ago. I'm just a different person. I've grown in my faith. I'm more dependent on the Lord. It's not about me. And again, we all have our own selfish tendencies, of course, right? We're human. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would describe it as I started it at the perfect time.
Well, that's great. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you had done it 10 years earlier, the mission wouldn't have been there because you didn't know Hope of Nigeria. And that
Yep.
wouldn't have, you had 2 days and, 2 days there. And not Nigeria. Did I just say Nigeria? Kenya. Sorry.
Kidding. Yep. Nope.
Um,
I wasn't going to correct you.
it's like, that's not right. So you wouldn't have had that. And then you probably, I mean, in our group, in our mastermind, it's, everybody is in that same position where we've realized through various ways of forms success and went, wow, that's really not where we want to be. That's not who I want to be.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean we're not doing good things and we're not great people having success, but what can we do to create significance? How can I move from success to significance? And that the driver is that. And I think too often as business owners and leaders, money is the success.
Right.
And it's a measuring tool. And I like food and shelter just like anyone else. So
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
we need that to support the mission, which is, leads into what you're doing. So you start this company, and how long does it take for you to get your first client? And for you, you're not only recruiting talent, you need to now then reach out to the the businesses and say, hey, look, I have this guy. What did that transition look like for you?
Yeah. No, we were. Yeah. So it was probably the first 90 days was you're trying to get software in place, get accounting. You're trying to get the infrastructure of this company set up
Mm-hmm.
as well as driving business. Right. So we're kind of doing everything right at once to get going. I would say we landed our first placement actually probably 4 months in,
Mm-hmm.
give or take. But the cool thing that we saw pretty quickly is people, and again, it helps that Keith and I have relationships. We were in the space for a long time, right? So you've got some earned trust already, and so leaning back into a lot of those relationships, we were able to get agreements in place with several companies. In fact, our first full year, and we're April 1 will be our 2-year anniversary, so we're 20, 21, 22 months in. But over our first 12 months, I bet we signed 30 agreements with clients
Wow.
in a down market, which is unheard of. And certainly the relationships that we have were a part of that. But what we found was, our mission, of sponsoring kids, it's our differentiator. Like we're in a competitive space where, again, as I mentioned before, very, very hard to differentiate. Well, we didn't dream this up to differentiate. right? I mean, this was God designed of what he'd asked us to do. We just said yes to the call. But that mission happens to be what differentiates the Mamba Group from really any of our other competitors. Because the reality is when a company chooses to partner with us and, we find the talent that they choose to bring on, then together we get to change the life of a child. Like none of my competitors can say that.
Right.
And what we found when companies truly live their mission, mission's always about people, right? I mean, mission's always about people. And so they really, whether they're faith-driven leaders or not, or faith-driven companies, just mission-driven in general, love what we're doing because our mission, you don't pay a different fee for us. It's the same. We're just being really faith-forward and telling people with part of what we earn, part of our profits, if you will, we're moving those to help sponsor kids in an underserved, underprivileged area in Africa.
That's great. Yeah. And you think about it, it's a commodity. I was, early in my career, I actually worked as a recruiter and a placement person and doing tons of interviews. I was there for 4 or 5 years in the right during, very end of college. And so I know that pain and man, you're talking about 22 people trying to sell the exact same person.
Correct.
I mean, it's like going and everybody goes to the same factory and buys a screw from China and then they turn around and resell it or whatever. I mean, it's a fascinating piece. And so, yeah, that differentiator, that mission, that purpose that you're leading is true. So almost 2 years in, how many are you hitting your targets on the placement side? What, how is business for you then?
Yeah, it's been an interesting run. I mean, the market in general in our space is down.
Right.
Been down for probably 3 years. How I've described 2025 for us is we survived. And I would call it good, not great. I think we made 22 placements last year and, it was great. We get to sponsor 22 kids and, but man, we're kind of we're in a run here over the last probably 8 or 10 weeks. We're incredibly busy. We've got eight on the board already for 2026, which is, for a couple of guys is a pretty good number. So we're out of the gates really quickly. So we feel very blessed for that. But I do want to, just because it's the coolest God story, I do want to mention our little, or at least for me, my pivotal moment.
Good.
One.
Yeah.
Because again, this was not something I set out to do. It just wasn't, right. And so
an accidental entrepreneur.
Yeah. Like it's not really what I was looking to do, but now I love it. So our first 9 months, so 2024, and I'll just give the data, like our goal was to make 10 placements. We made 6. Again, lots of great conversations, agreements in place. 6 placements doesn't really pay the bills for a couple of guys and their families, right? So, but we felt like most of why we weren't as successful is more economy driven, not necessarily the efforts we were making. We felt like we had laid good groundwork, et cetera, and controlled the controllables, if you will. And so we enter into 2025. So last year at this time, and we have a really, really crazy good activity-wise January. We didn't get anything over the finish line, right? Second place doesn't pay in our space, right? We can have really good talent, but if they don't get the job, we don't get the placement. So we're still just at 6. And I had always told myself, like, I'm giving this thing a year, right? So my wife, and she's not a school teacher today. She used to be. She's actually, she's in a software sales role, which allows me, so she has our insurance, et cetera. So that allows me to do this. Well, I can see like she's stressed, right? I mean, she's stressed, and as her husband, I don't like that, right? I'm very capable to go get a job, and so about a year ago, this time it was mid-February last year. So I was about 6 weeks out from our 1-year anniversary, and we had still just had the 6 placements. And I had a 2-day stretch in mid-February where I was living out, for me, living out James 1, your endurance grows your faith. So my endurance, like, it was running out, like my cup was empty. And I was just kind of, for 2 days, I'm like, God, I don't understand why we're not having more success. Like, I love what we're doing. Like, I love the ability to do this, but man, like, I got to go get a job, and I don't want to, but I need to go support my family. And so that was on a Thursday. On that next day, Friday, it's how I describe it as my fist pound moment with God. And I just said, you're going to have to show me this is what you want me to be doing. You're going to have to show me. That very next week, he closed 3 deals. The very next week. We had 6 in the first 11 months. And so for me, from a faith standpoint, like, if we would have closed a deal, I would have been like, that didn't answer it. 2, I might even have still questioned it. But man, 3, that next week, that just solidified Mike, stay the course.
Right.
And here's the really cool God math in that. So our first 11 months as an organization, we had made 6 placements. That next 6 weeks, we made 11. Yeah. And again, it's not like we just rocket shipped from there. I wish that was the story. That wasn't what happened. But for me, it just solidified I'm doing exactly what God's called me to do. And he allowed me to kind of get to the end of my endurance. And I think for me, it was, okay, I can trust him. All right, I'm going to allow him to have a little more success. And I also know me, like, if we would have had a ton of success out of the gate, it would have been really easy for me to take credit for that. Right?
Sure.
But that wasn't the path. So he kind of allowed this so we could still, like, look what the Lord did. Like, it was just him. Like, we didn't do anything different. We do the same things we do every day. Like, and we just trust him with the outcomes.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. Yeah, you start, you go, oh, it's just 1, maybe I got lucky. 2, yeah, maybe God helped me out, maybe. But 3, you're like, oh wait, time out. Yeah. I need to give credit where credit due, because this wasn't me. And we get the ego and the pride out of the way, and competitiveness and all the things. So yeah, I've been in that same. You want to provide for your family, and so you're without, and you think, gosh, am I doing the right thing? I'm capable of. Right. I'll just go get another banking job. I say that, it's like, oh, I can do that. Right. I'm really good at it. I like it. I know that's not what I'm supposed to. Yeah, I know that's not what I'm supposed to do, but and so so I get that, that feeling of I need to earn money to just make life easier. So
right.
What a great story. And so that was a pivotal moment. So you went from 3 to 11 and, survived 25. I mean, I am hearing that a lot with our clients in our mastermind, that, it was survive 25, not a bad year, not a good year, but just, it was fine. Right. And grinding it out, putting in the time, and now there's a lot of open doors. For you, what I'm curious about is, how is AI impacting the IT and all of the other placements, along with the announcements of, Facebook or Meta and Amazon kind of letting a bunch of people go. So do you have more of a pool of talent, and that now you're trying to find specific niche people for jobs? What's that look like for you?
Yeah, it's super interesting time, right, with AI, and everybody's still trying to figure out what that is. Like, I'll just give you, and again, I have the luxury of talking with a lot of leaders, a lot of organizations. So a lot of my opinions are formed by those conversations. So, in my opinion, based on what I understand, will AI take some jobs? Eventually, that might take a few. Lower level, entry level type jobs, I think are, certainly possible. Hey, we may only need 2 people instead of 10 because of the technology tools. But where I think it's going to be, where I think where the rubber meets the road with AI So I think it's less about jobs being taken. I think it's more about, I think the employees that will find themselves in a troubled spot are the ones that don't embrace AI themselves, because AI can really enhance what you do. I use AI, we use AI every day in what we do. And I would view it as my personal assistant. It helps me be more efficient in everything that I'm trying to do. So I think the employees that are be like, I don't need that. I think those are the ones that their jobs could be in jeopardy when they don't embrace the tools. Would be, I don't want to say that's consensus of what I've heard, but as I would view the landscape of the job market, and again, 4 or 5 years from now, the job market is probably going to look entirely different, and I don't know what that's going to look like.
Right.
I do think when you talk about some of the big tech companies laying off, part of that is certainly everybody got really heavy post COVID. Everybody was hiring. I sit in Iowa and Midwest, and even our local talent pool is getting poached by the coasts, paying outrageous dollars for talent. Well, they overpay for talent, and then eventually that pendulum swings back, and guess what? Now those people don't have jobs, right? And they've been laid off. And the other really interesting thing in the employment climate that I think everybody saw through COVID was the remote work world, right? Well, at least in the markets that we serve, that pendulum has swung back pretty far the other way. There's very few companies now that are 100% remote. There are still some, but most are some form of in-office hybrid, which from a talent perspective, that gets you right back to the local talent market. So that has entirely shifted back to a little bit the way it was. In the way I've kind of described post-COVID from an employee-employer relationship standpoint is, and I lived in this space as well. To me, pre-COVID, I felt like most people were work priority. They put their work as a priority, and they figured out how to fit their family into that. Then we had this COVID period, this COVID pause, this remote work world. And I think that kind of flipped for most people. Now it's like everybody understood, man, the family's the most important thing. And so now I'm focused on that. How do I fit my work into my family? So that's where I think it flipped. In my opinion, the organizations that understand that and offer that flexibility, that, the hybrid, but, just a little more, I'll say, family friendly environments, in my opinion, are the companies that are going to win the war on talent.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So family friendly is going to win the war on talent. And I, talking to different clients and people that, I came up with this, and I haven't actually shared it anywhere, but I was thinking of the piece of working from home is like saying, having a gym membership. It's great, but you didn't go.
Right.
And a hybrid, I have to go to the office. It's unfair 2 days a week. Well, guess what? You're not going to get in shape going to the gym 2 days a week.
Right.
And so it's got to be at least 3, and maybe even 4 and 5. Depending on what your goals are. And so, really it should be, in my opinion, you got to be there you miss the contract idea, you miss the human interaction. And especially now with AI, if you don't have that human interaction, what's going to differentiate yourself?
Right. Right.
And if you don't have the human interaction, you might miss the renewal of that contract because you just didn't talk about it. But somebody in the trenches may go, hey, look, the team is wondering, did you get the renewal?
Right.
Instead of, and then you're like, uh-oh, and you miss it. So with, the water cooler talk that's positive and not gossipy, can really lead. Or instead of popping something in Slack and wondering if they saw it and interrupting their workflow, you can walk next door and just go, hey, Mike, quick question.
Right.
What if we did this? Great. Okay. Bye. That's it.
Right. Yeah. No,
It's warm, it's affirming, it's human interaction, and I think we're going to see it shift a little bit. Like you, I have an opportunity to talk to a lot of business owners, and
yeah,
it's a trying time.
it is.
Trying to figure it out, but one quick, in your world, gentleman makes websites for people.
Okay.
So typically, it would charge $65,000 to $100,000 for the site, 6 months to 12 months for deployment, 6 employees on the job full time. So pretty large scope websites.
Yeah.
He went into, forget what LLM. I don't Claude, Replit.
Yeah.
And he created a website by himself one night, stayed up late in 4 hours.
Yeah.
And went to the office with it and said, okay, guys, you need to figure this out. He didn't say he's getting rid of anybody.
Right.
But he said, unless you think you want another job, you better figure this out. Right. And so that was the difference. It wasn't, oh, by the way, all 6 of you are fired because you over here is the best at writing and can figure out how to talk to the LLM, and we're just going to keep you. It was, we could just 6X. We can do more. Right. We can do it better, faster, easier,
right,
and potentially even for less money. So,
right. Yep. Absolutely.
So, like you said, it's a tool. Is there anything that you're seeing that, from these employers on that side, that what size employer are you looking for as far as clients and prospects? What, I guess that would be a great place.
Yeah, we're probably, just that middle market. As a smaller firm, I would say our target employee size is, going to be 400 or 500 up to 2,000 or 3,000. Yeah, would be kind of a sweet spot. Much smaller than that, they would be a pretty infrequent or non-buyer of what we do, right? So they have to be a size enough to, in general, be a good target. So yeah, that would be kind of the sweet spot of, somebody that, and we do both, contract and full-time placement. We would prefer to be heavier in the contract side, for, just growing the business from monthly recurring revenue streams and understanding, when we can hire, et cetera. So that's, in, really small organizations probably aren't doing a lot of buying in that space. So that would be our sweet spot. In Des Moines specifically, and we have clients outside of Iowa and Illinois. My partner in the Chicagoland area, we've got 5 or 6 clients over there as well. And in a market that I'm in today, it's a bunch of financial insurance institutions. Is a lot of what we have in this market. So that's what we see as our target. Eventually we'll grow, a team and a staff where we can compete a little better in some larger accounts. But I think we've got to earn our right for a bit before we climb into those, Fortune 5 companies.
Yep. So you're looking at, 400 to 2,000 employer size, and primarily in the Iowa, Illinois area rather than, U.S. wide. So fairly niche or regionally, I guess.
Yeah,
more so than.
Yeah, and we have, and again, it's a lot of bandwidth and relationship driven today. We've made some placements with a client out in Utah where we've made 3 placements, but it's a relationship that, that's kind of how our space moves. Lots of times you open up new accounts because somebody you work with moved, right? So I think, I don't know what the long term is for us. If I had to guess, we'll probably be kind of a Midwest regional player. But I certainly don't want to limit us. Recruiting's recruiting. We can place anywhere. We've got an offshore, nearshore partner that we work with. So, we certainly have global capabilities. And here's, from just a pure faith standpoint, and this whole thing's been a faith deal and been a God deal. And, I just happen to say yes to the call. I don't want to, I know I serve a big God, and, he may have some wild plans for what he's choosing to do with the Mamba Group. I'm just along for the ride, and I try to, I try to run shotgun with Jesus. I want him behind the wheel, right? Him orchestrating, and I'm just kind of riding along and seeing where he's going to take us. So
I love that. Riding shotgun with Jesus.
yeah,
Reminds me of Bob Beaudine's book of Two Chairs.
there you go. Yeah,
Where,
yeah.
he's always, when he's in the Word, when he's reading, no matter what, he has two chairs, and one is full of God. It's
Yep.
for God, and it's not for anybody else to sit in. So
Right.
so what over the last year, and then I want to kind of shift over to the Mamba, or the mission, but what over the last year was there something that you implemented in the business side that's you feel like is changed or kind of helped you propel forward, or maybe kind of a game changing something that's been a game changer for you?
Probably just leaning in a little bit more to AI, to be honest. Just learning. And again, I'm probably using 10 to 20% of its capabilities, right? I mean, and I know that, but there's not a day that goes by that I'm not in that tool. Just for instance, what we play with, a lot of the challenge we have today, AI makes it really challenging to recruit people, because there's fake resumes, fake profiles. It's really easy in AI for somebody to see the job description and have AI retool their resume to fit that job description.
Right.
That makes our job extremely hard to identify, because we see what seem to be way too perfect of candidates, right? Like, you literally wrote your resume based on this job description, right? And so, but even yesterday, I can plug in, and I use ChatGPT, and I can create projects around, here's the job. I can download a job description, I can download the candidate's resume, and I'm asking AI to give me AI's opinion. Is this too perfect of a resume? Was it written based on that? I'm asking it to give me qualifying questions for the candidate based on their resume. So it's just helping me be better teching candidates. I'm a sales relationship leader guy. I'm not a tech guy. I just happen to live in the tech space, and I know tech, an inch deep and a mile wide, but I'm not a programmer. I didn't grow up programming. I didn't grow up, configuring networks. So utilizing those tools really helps us be better at qualifying candidates. And I think that's in our space. That's where the rubber meets the road. Like, we can be good guys with a cool mission, but at the end of the day, we have to be able to find talent.
Right. And you find the right talent that fits in the right business. And so, I didn't even think about that. Making a resume that would just, hey, chat, make the resume match this exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that can be done in seconds or minutes.
Oh, yeah. No, now I think about it. Yeah. It's a no brainer. It would be so easy. Just click and hit send. And
While you look like a perfect fit, I've got to determine, are you full of it? Can you really do this? Right.
Yeah. And interesting. So I guess that goes back to a little bit to the old thing of checking references, having a human connection, having a human voice that will actually vouch for that person. And again, that's hard too, because, everybody's afraid of getting sued. So,
no, I was just going to mention, just even yesterday in that whole scenario, I'm talking to this candidate, and I could see his eyes moving, where I felt like he was probably using a tool to field my questions and to spit out answers that he's reading back to me, is what I was trying to dissect on this video call with a candidate. And I'm 3 questions in, and so I call him out on it and just say, hey, I feel like your eyes keep moving. And of course, he denies that. So I ask a couple more questions, and I'm just like, listen, here's the deal. Like, there's just too many fake candidates out there. That's not on you. It's just what I have to deal with. I need you to send me 3 of your references from your past 3 hiring leaders. So and so it's a red flag if he doesn't send them, right? So that's all we're trying to detect is those kind of things. And so we sent them. So now after this call, I'm going to be calling those references to try to validate his background and experience.
Wow. Yeah.
So
then
yeah.
People have been lying forever on their resumes. So it's, but now it's a whole nother level. Interesting. Well, that's fascinating. I love that. But let's talk about the one-to-one. So you're thinking, I don't know, I'm going to go drive to the middle of Iowa and just join a board. I don't know. And, oh, by the way, I'm going to start a company and I've never been a business owner and I'm unemployed. So I should just get a job so I can make my wife happy. You've got a lot going on, and all of this, your heart's just being tugged on. Tell us a little bit more about what one-to-one does and how you're changing lives.
Yeah. So, and when we started this company, it was super important to us that, we wanted to sponsor a child with the very first placement. It was important to us. We didn't want to wait till we had an income. We didn't want to wait till there was this pseudo profit. Like, the whole mission of our company is this. So we started with the very first placement and we sponsor the child. And so just to unpack that a little bit, so it costs us $50 a month or $600 a year to sponsor a child. Well, that's the financial packet. And also, and this is the interesting part in how you have to figure out, okay, I'm not even sure if this is feasible, but our commitment is for no matter the age of the child, we will sponsor them through high school graduation. So whether they're 4, 5, 10, whatever, it's not we just make a placement and sponsor them for a year. No, we're all in. We're sponsoring them until, we're getting them through graduation. So how we operate that is we about a year ago, we opened up a donor advised fund, which is kind of like a foundation for those that maybe don't understand what that is. But it's the fund basically is what we fund to sponsor our monthly sponsor. So like today, we've got 20 some kids we're sponsoring, and we pull that money out of that account to send that to Africa. And so what I love about how we operate that with our customers is, and it's from a faith standpoint, our first fruits mentality is every time we make a placement and sponsor the child, what we do is the first $1,200 that come in, which that would sponsor the child for 2 years. So we pre-fund 2 years for every child we sponsor. So the first $1,200 that comes into the Mamba group, the Mamba group sends that to the donor advised fund, which we call the Mamba Hope Fund. So the first $1,200 we don't get paid on, we don't operate the business, because our primary focus and being of existence is sponsoring the child. So they get fed first. So that's our first fruits mentality. And we also know, and we did a pro forma 5 years, is this even possible, right? If we have X amount of kids, or, can this, will this break at some point? And we rolled that out 5 years, and we feel like, there's certainly ways it could break down. But we also know, we feel like we're tilling new ground. I don't think anybody else is doing this. This seems like the right plan now, but we also know, hey, if we need to pivot it, we have to pivot it. We may need to feed it more. We may just need to upfront feed 3 years versus 2, right? But we'll figure that out. The business will tell us if we need to make that adjustment. But out of the gate, that's how we do it. And the other thing that I love that we have implemented from day one is our clients are the ones that actually select the child. So wow. we have a website, our logo's on it with these kids. And so what was super important to me, Graham, was when we started this thing, I never wanted anybody to ever wonder, do you think they sponsored the child? Because that turns into really gross marketing. That would probably be pretty rare, but I just never wanted that doubt. So how we remove that is whenever we make a placement, we get paid. If it's local, we'll be in person. If it's not local, we're on a video screen, and literally the hiring leader and the person we place together will choose the child from the website. And then we execute, as a company, we execute the sponsorship. And then we actually ended up working with an artist. And so we have a kind of this custom 11 by 14 print that's really, really cool that we actually give to the client with the picture of the child and the child's name. So it's basically it's our client gift that basically tells them doing business with us is just different. So we want them to know, like, yeah, hopefully we placed a really a really good person for you, but it's kind of the trifecta. So now we get a sponsor. We're sponsoring this child.
That's beautiful. And I have a couple of questions and then a couple of thoughts. First is, what about talking about that first fruits, what about talking to the accounting department at those groups and letting them just put the money into the donor advised fund first, so they could actually even take it to a little bit of a tax advantage and make them feel better.
Yeah.
And you could increase and say, look, you're getting a little tax advantage. How about you do that? And then the second piece is, hey, this picture we just gave you, what if you sent that out to your employees and said, hey, this is pretty cool. We brought on Susie and Steve, and we just sponsored, two kids over here. Look at who we've supported. And maybe employees would say, oh, well, I'd give $50. I'd give $20. So share the picture, please. So those are two thoughts. Anyway, my question though was, how are you finding the kids?
So that's the beauty is, so it's all of that work is done by the Hope Foundation of Kenya.
Okay, I wondered.
Right. So now my wife and I, we serve on the board now, which is great. So we have the lens on both sides of this. So it's the Hope Foundation, the team in Africa, what they, there's, I'll use U.S. terms. This is probably a little light for Africa, but there's an application process for families to get in the funnel for the Hope Foundation. And really what the Hope Foundation does is really try to find the neediest of the needy, the poorest of the poor. Mm-hmm. And so they're the ones that do all of the work on that side of it. The way I view it for the Mamba group, we're just fueling that mission. So it's their mission. We've just attached our ship to what they're doing. It's not it's similar to Compassion International, World Vision, all the other ones out there. This is a smaller scale version in a specific, geographic space. Today is in Mombasa, and who knows if that grows outside of that. So it's a Hope Foundation that does all of that work. We simply fuel what they're doing.
So these families, Hope Foundation has boots on the ground. They're finding the families in need. They're taking them, determining whether it's a good fit or not a good fit for whatever purposes, needs that they, what that looks like. Let's say it's a family of 4, and mom, dad, 2 kids, and they come in, they are vetted, and they're like, yeah, we want to help them. And you're the booster, you're adding some, fuel to the fire so they can support them. You're supporting one child and the other child. I mean, what does that support go to? How does it help? If you're from, taking a 10-year-old to an 18-year-old, that's 8 years of one child in a family of 2. How does it support the whole family? And what does the funding actually help them do with it? Food, education, what's that look like?
Yeah, no, great questions. So what the $50 a month does, it provides them 2 meals a day, 5 days a week. So when they're in school, they get fed. That gets them into, so the Hope Foundation, we have 1 high school, Valerie McMillan High School, and 4 feeder elementary, junior high-ish schools. So about a little over 1,100 kids the organization currently supports. So it feeds them, gets them educated, it gives them access to healthcare. And then, from us, from a faith standpoint, it's a Christian education, right? I mean, they're Christian schools. And so we want them to understand the love that God has for them. So the spiritual guidance that they're getting for us is, I mean, that's the most important thing. The rest of the stuff we do goes away. So that at the core of it is the faith piece, but that's the physical needs that are being met. There's multiple, again, as kids, again, you mentioned, lots of families have multiple kids. Some of them have multiple kids that are being sponsored into the Hope Foundation. And so, whether it's us or other individuals that are sponsoring kids, there's always opportunities for those other family members to get sponsored. So that's how that works. And again, it's I was on the website with a client just last week selecting a child that they wanted to select, and this was astounding. Because when we have access to their incomes, we have it on the website. Here's the family, they have X amount of siblings, here's the income, here's the interest. So Hope Foundation does all that work to try to describe, that situation. There's a family with a young girl, and I don't remember her age, but she has 9 siblings, and their family income monthly is $10. 10.
Wow.
Like it's really unfathomable.
Your $50 a month is 5 times what the entire family is trying to survive on.
Right. So, I was back in Kenya in July. So I made my second trip. My wife got to go, which was incredible. What rang true to me both times I'd been there is, man, the only reason they're like they are is because of where they were born. That's it. Like, I'm no better. I'm no different. Like, I was just blessed. I was born in the US. Right. And so that's where, it's just, and I know, like, we're not going to solve poverty. That's not what we're doing here. But, we got the tap to make a difference. And so we're going to work our tails off to change and impact as many individual kids and generationally their families that we possibly can, in a really cool long-term vision that we have. And how I've described it, if it's Mike's vision, it won't happen. If it's God's vision, it will. So I'm not sure which this is, but long-term, we would love to build technology centers in the villages of Kenya to actually create jobs there, because that's the other factor. Like, you don't solve poverty by feeding them. Now, we help them, and I don't say we don't do that, but the way you make real change is by job creation. And there's so few jobs there. So that's kind of this really cool long-term vision that, again, I don't know if it's my dumb idea or if it was God seeded in my mind, but that's where we'd love to get to one day, is building technology centers, employing some of these folks. And then the ultimate dream would be some of these folks are on the Mamba Group payroll servicing our US based clients. Right. Now we're making a change. Right.
And
that's where we hope and pray that's going.
And I think that's a wonderful mission. And we actually employ a person in Kenya.
Okay.
And he is our graphic designer.
In Nairobi, or where at in Kenya,
Nairobi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he is, we have a virtual team. We have a couple of people down in the Philippines as well. And when we were looking, Gideon was like, and his work was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it was exciting because he was part of this. Yeah. Anyway. So I just, one of our pictures, I was like, what soccer jersey are you wearing? He's like, what? How do you know it's and anyway, so it's fun. And, his work is phenomenal, and he takes so much pride in it. And he tells his buddies, I work for an American company. Right. So man, we're really not doing much for you, but we are. But we don't think about it that way. We don't. It's just, so you put together a group of people over there that you've given an education. They're 18 years old. You find their talent is, and you could certainly put it in Mombasa and find a facility there. I think we helped with a generator and a cell phone or something.
Sure.
There's some
Yeah.
some just for some consistency.
That's the problem. I mean, there's, most of these places in the villages, they don't have power,
Right.
it's literal villages. And so there's definitely infrastructure work that needs to get done there. And, but yeah, I mean, I kind of view, and it's not because we're doing the work in Kenya, but if you take a look at, outsourcing jobs, et cetera, Africa in general is kind of the next India. It's an untapped labor market, right? There's super talented people there that is relatively untapped or very little tapped. So we just think there's, and certainly not just us, but there's a lot of folks out there that think there's tremendous opportunity there. And we're just choosing, like, our goal is not to go gain profit from these people, right? I mean, our goal is different. Our goal is, we want to change their lives. We want to help employ them so they can better their lives, their families, their communities. Like that's where our passion is. And we feel like we feel like there's an opportunity to, you have to have sustainability, right? I mean, you can't just do one. And so we feel like we've got, at least conceptually in our minds, a model that's not only sustainable, but scalable. But again, we're just getting started. We're not quite 2 years in. And so we've got a bunch of work to do just to grow the foundation of our staffing and consulting firm. But those are the kind of exciting things that, we get excited about. If I look at, 5 and 10 and 15 years down the road, that we'll get the opportunity to be tackling.
Right. How exciting would that be to say, hey, we've taken care of the 400 to 2,000 employer size.
Yeah.
We're looking at smaller businesses with 5 or 1 or 100 employees that just needs to fill in. We've got a crew over in Mombasa that we're just, they're on our payroll and you just need to pay them for their work. And now you're a staffing company that's, a virtual staffing company essentially that's coordinated by you.
Right.
So that's huge. I love that. What a purpose and a mission that would be. And talk about generational change.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what, that's what we get excited about it. And I also know, like, I'm not going to, we can't fulfill that mission on our own. Right. I mean, so we just know, like, God's going to have to orchestrate the right people in our path to see that vision through. Right. I mean, that's not going to be Mike and Keith figuring all that out. Right. We just know if that's going to come to fruition, they'll be the right partners, the right folks smarter than us to help fulfill that vision.
Well, I love that. Yeah. And that's in alignment with so many people in our group. We have one that's changing lives in Colombia and another one that's changing lives in Turkey and changing lives in the Philippines. Her mission is to help moms in the Philippines have jobs. I mean, that's her one mission in life. She lives in Ohio. It's like, what? Yep. But yeah, so it's very much a faith-driven, faith-forward mission. And it's awesome. So to close us out, I know you got things to do. One piece of advice you'd give some listeners out there right now.
Wow, one piece of advice. Man, there could be a boatload. The best advice I think I can give is I'll just take us to scripture. I had never had a life verse up until probably 7 or 8 years ago. And the Lord just gave me Matthew 6:33, which is, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all the rest will be given to you. So how I try to live that out daily is, man, if I put my focus on Jesus, he's got the rest of this. So I just need to focus on him. So that's probably the best advice I can give is for the folks, I control zero. He controls every outcome, right? Like I control none of it, right? And so I just do my best, and I am far from perfect, and I stumble every day. But it's kind of those, I just want to point myself and others to him. He guides and directs, and I accept the outcomes are his and not mine.
I love that. That's beautiful. So is there anything that I should have asked that I didn't?
No, I think I rambled a bunch, so hope we're right and terrible.
Well, no, it was true.
Obviously, there's a lot of passion in what we're doing. We're super excited about it. I guess the last thing I would say is just this. For me, like my prayer is like God expands my platform that He's given. I have a platform. I would love my platform to be expanded one day, that I get to share the story of the Mamba Group, and I get to share, look at all this stuff that God did. And I get to simply say, and I just said yes. Look at everything He did. I just said yes. Because I think there's so many people, and I was really close to not doing it, that don't say yes, right? For me, as being obedient to that call, because it's going to be hard or uncomfortable, right? And I'm in the midst of it. It's not like we've arrived and we have this amazing scaling organization. We're on the journey, right? And I don't know where that journey is going to go. But man, just being faithful and saying yes to a call. And I would say this, and I'll try to be done. Like, I wouldn't trade what I'm doing for a paycheck. I'm not recruitable. Like, I'm doing exactly what I know God's asked me to do. And whatever He allows us to have from a paycheck standpoint, it's enough.
I love that. It's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful mission. And how do people get a hold of you, and so that we can support the Mamba Group and everything that you're doing?
Yeah, certainly we have a website, themambagroup.com. I'm pretty heavy LinkedIn user. Come follow me. I like to, God planted on me about a year ago to post on Fridays, Faith Fridays. So I have a faith-driven post every single Friday. So I'm on LinkedIn, Mike Rice, Mamba Group. You'll find me there. And so I won't give my email and phone numbers, etc. But I'm out there. If you Google the Mamba Group, you're going to find me.
Well, and that's, you know what? I think that's how I found you, as a Faith Forward Fridays, because I used to do that, and I did it for a lot of years, and then it was work. And so now we do a prayer on Sunday, and we put that out instead. I don't know why Sunday was a better prayer day versus Faith Friday, but that's what we did. So I think that's how we found, and that's how we connected. So I love it.
Love it.
So yeah, and I will post that your contact on LinkedIn in the Mamba Group website in our link as well. That way people can just go click on it and easily find you. But I really appreciated this time. I love the purpose, the mission, and if you need anything to support the group here, the people listening, and anybody else out there, they can find you and help you. So I look forward to that.
I love it.
And seeing what God has for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you reaching out, Graham, and enjoyed the conversation for sure. And I love any opportunity I get to share the cool story that God's currently writing.
Yeah, right. I love it.